was that?
Yeah. Needs a little WD-40.
I was going to say, get that little old-fashioned oil squirt can thing, you know?
Yeah, a little WD-40 would probably be good on that.
Right.
But anyways, here we are. It's a new day. There's muck in the Apple neighborhood. Although this is perfect timing. I mean, these guys are about as dense as it gets.
Oh, it's the best. It's just the best.
I mean, if the EU was saying, hey, Apple, could you tee one up for us? And then Apple's like, yeah, sure, we could. And then they
do
did
it twice. Yeah. No, it's oh god, a classic.
So for those, the super high level, for those who aren't familiar, there's a company called Basecamp, which we actually use. It's a group collaboration project management thing.
Oh, was that your $99 comment yesterday?
Yes.
I thought you were talking about Newton for some reason. But okay. You meant Basecamp. Sorry.
Yeah. So Basecamp launched a new email service, and I'm not going to buy it. I'm not. Whatever. It's hey.com. HEY.com. And there's a couple reasons why. One, it's $100 at minimum. If you want a vanity one, like a 2-letter email address, it's like $1,000 a year.
Ugh.
And by the way, that's $99 a year. That's not like a one-time fee. Anyway, so then you get access to their fancy new email app, and it's really restrictive. And to me, on the surface, it feels like more work to get your inbox the way you want it, and I just don't really care that much. All of that being aside, what Apple did has nothing to do whether or not you like the model that Hey is launching, but what they did was Hey put their app in the store. Apple said, oh, wait, you're trying to charge people money for this. You better give us 30%, and then lock their app so they couldn't push bug fixes or anything else like that, or basically holding their iPhone app hostage until they say, give us 30% of whatever you're charging.
The story is so much even better than that, Brad. The Apple called them.
Oh, literally?
Threatened them. Yeah. Like the mafia, you know? The other thing that I think he's the CTO, but the co-founder of Basecamp was saying that, look, we understand that there are fees associated with, digital services. Mm-hmm. Some of the most reviled companies on earth are like MasterCard, Visa, credit card companies. Those guys charge 2 to 3% for a transaction. Like Apple charges 30.
Yeah.
And it is the only way to do an in-app payment. It's the only choice you have. And
so I think that's actually a pretty good analogy, the 2 to 3% that MasterCard charges. Now, I think Apple could probably successfully say, hey, look, we should get higher than 2 to 3%, maybe 5%, because we're also hosting this or whatever.
I don't think so.
I could see them making that
they're
argument.
They're not doing anything.
Well,
it doesn't cost Apple more to host an app that happens to be tied to an online service that charges a fee than it does for them to host an app which is absolutely free, for which Apple gets no payment whatsoever. There is a huge disconnect between a company interacting with its own customers and a company that puts an app in a store. I agree that there could be something,
but not 30%. Not 30% is robbing the bank.
Well,
at that point.
Here's something you can do as a merchant. Like, let's say you want a restaurant, and the typical credit card fee is 2 to 3%. It's the price of doing business. You're kind of used to this. And American Express comes along. They say, we're going to charge you 5 or 6%, whatever it is, and your reaction to that is, we're not going to do that. Forget it. Yeah. We're not accepting American Express. Or you do accept it, and because you don't want to upset customers, whatever. Yeah. That's your choice.
Well, actually, they're even built on that. American Express, actually, they're famous for charging the highest percentage, but they also will do advertising on your behalf. They do small business Saturdays.
They actually justify the fee.
Yeah.
The point is there is competition.
Yes,
and
that is good. Yep.
On the EU complaint, literally, is that Apple's the gatekeeper for the App Store, and you have to adhere to their policies. God help you if Apple wants to compete with you. They'll artificially put you down in the store where people can't see you. But plus they're charging their competitors fees, for which their own services, of course, never pay fees. I mean, they're completely paid for by Apple's other profits. So I've always had a problem with this. I love that they're finally going after them for this, the antitrust regulators, EU and the United States. This will end. There is no doubt that it will end. And by the way, maybe it does go down to 2 or 3%. And you know what? All these companies who are complaining would probably happily pay 2 to 3%.
Oh, yeah.
my point is that Apple's cost for hosting this, or whatever you think they're doing. No, I don't mean you, Brad. I mean anyone who defends this company. Yep, sorry. No, whatever anyone thinks that Apple, whatever onerous job it is for Apple with all their trillions of dollars to host apps in a store, whatever you think it is, that's the same cost for every app in the store. It doesn't. It's not harder for Apple to host an app that charges its own users fees. It's just not. Yeah. And as I think it's the parent company of Tinder pointed out, apps that Apple determines are tied to a digital service are the only ones that are charged this fee. So they pointed out that Uber and Lyft, for example, for some reason, are not charged a 30% fee on every transaction, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, so not only is this fee like incredibly high, it's also relatively arbitrary because Apple is never going to compete with Lyft or Uber, right? They know that. There is a possibility that Apple might want to put out a dating app, like like they have Christian dating apps and farmer dating apps. Now you can have Apple user dating apps. Why not?
Yep.
Yeah, I this is going to change. There's no doubt. I mean, I think the fact that this happened literally the day that the EU announced their charges against this company, or that they were investigating, is it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. It reminds me of this excellent, and speaking of politically incorrect joke from The Daily Show a million years ago, back when Craig Kilborn, or whatever his name is, was the host. He did a fake interview with Helmut Kohl, who at the time, Germany, which obviously has a terrible history of religious persecution, was going after Scientologists. And he asked him, he said, how could you go after another religious group? I mean, given your country's history. And he said, Craig, it's like riding a bike. And that's Apple. It's like they can't help themselves. So God bless them for making life so hilarious. I mean, they're unbelievable. And this will stop. I have no doubt about it. This is going to be gone. And as I put in my article, by the way, what happens next? What happens when it goes away? And now companies will come back and say, oh, that's interesting. I'd like all those fees you charged me back now. Thank you. Because they were just determined to be illegal. Yeah. This could be
what will happen, and this too, is that the EU will come out and say, hey, you guys are going to pay us $4 billion. Pick your number, whatever the fine is. And then the companies will go to the EU and be like, hey, you're going to give us that money? And they're like, nope.
Well,
no. We need a new monument.
whatever the fee is. It's not going to the companies. That's
it's good in theory, but they're not going to get that back.
No, that's not what that's for. I mean, but by the way, that was my point. I mean, these companies, you could imagine class action lawsuits. I mean, and honestly, that kind of explains why Apple would fight it. I mean, I feel like this is indefensible, but of course you have to fight it. The problem is, how do you do it? How do you do it today? Like, how do you keep doing it? They're amazing. They're amazing. Anyway, I don't know. Everyone holds up Apple as this wonderful company. They've got such a peachy keen reputation. Yeah. You got to remember, they're a huge corporation.
They get a couple dollars in the bank.
Yeah, huge corporation. They're not good. They're just a company.
Yep. Speaking of other good things, if you use Gmail, I hope you plan on using Meet. Otherwise, you're going to have a significant quantity of the dashboard. I just combined like 7 words. The taskbar is what I was trying to say, or whatever bottom area.
That's what you were trying to say.
Yeah. We'll have a giant Meet.
Be clear, he means MEET, not the protein substance.
There's just a little bacon icon down there. You tap it, and you can browse the local meat selection. So Google is shoving that down everyone's throat. And
so the good news there is, if you don't want meat, the Google Meet, that is, you can actually turn that icon off.
Oh, that is good.
Yeah,
that is good.
So give them a little credit for that.
The other interesting thing coming out of the Google side-ish is what Parallels is doing. Now, we don't have all the details on this yet, but you're going to be able to run Windows apps on Chromebooks, which kind of hurts to say, because I don't know.
What does that mean? No, I see. So Parallels kind of pinged me about this announcement, and it was a very short email. So I wrote him back, and I was like, hey, is there really? And I went to this. So I went to this site. They didn't send me like a press release or anything. So I went to their site to look for one, and there was nothing. And so I wrote them back. I said, "Do you have like a blog post or a press release that I'm missing here?" And they're like, "No, we'll have more information later, but Google does have this." And Google had this long post about all kinds of stuff. And then, I don't know, three-quarters of the way through, there was like one little paragraph where they kind of mentioned this. So it's actually unclear what this means. Parallels is a maker of most, I would call them virtualization solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they probably have they do have a capacity like we have in the Windows or Microsoft world of, hosting these things in the cloud and bringing them down, whatever. This is only for Chromebook for Enterprise, for one thing. Mm-hmm. It's not happening until the end of the year. It's not like it's here now. So it's not entirely clear what this means. I suspect what this is an alternative to the Citrixes, the Azure, Windows Virtual Desktop, whatever capabilities that we already see from other companies. But I think the reason it's notable is because they're doing it in partnership with Google. Mm-hmm. That doesn't preclude Google from partnering with other companies to bring, to do this kind of thing. It's not clear if this is the solution, right, from Google for this kind of capability. The other thing I'll just point out is very entertaining to see how the different language that these two companies use to describe this capability. I'm doing this off the top of my head, so it's going to be a little bit of paraphrasing. But from the perspective of Parallels, this brings the high-powered, full-featured Windows application ecosystem to Chromebook. And from the perspective of Google, this is a way to get legacy apps. Mm-hmm. Kind of downplaying the significance of how,
you buy a Chromebook for a specific reason, not to be able to even, honestly, to attempt to run Windows apps. It's got to be a virtualized solution that probably is streamed or something like that, because Chromebooks are, for the most part, extremely low power compared to like a PC.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, yes, I think that's improved over time. I think the big difference these days between a typical Chromebook, and I don't mean the little $200 piece of crap thing you'd get for a kid, but the type an adult might buy, because these things are often $500-600, whatever. The big difference is really storage, and the biggest difference, I should say, and maybe even the quality of the storage. You probably see a lot of eMMC still on those devices, but that's where a virtualization solution would be pretty good, because the power of the local device isn't as important. You'd be running it in the cloud. It's the Google ecosystem kind of relies on everything being in the cloud. You can save stuff, the disk, but I mean, you're on a Chromebook, probably using Google Docs. Your docs are in the cloud. They're not really touching the disk anyway. It doesn't really matter. So a virtualization solution that's cloud hosted, especially, by the way, if this partnership includes Google is the one that hosts this, maybe. And I don't know, we don't know.
Oh, that would make sense. It's on Google Cloud or whatever.
Yeah, that could make sense. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So we'll see how that materializes. But as Paul pointed out, there's some big details missing there.
Yeah, it's a curiously vague announcement. Like, we plan to do this thing one day, and we're not going to tell you exactly what this thing is.
Yep. This is very random, sort of, but there's an app called, actually Raphael tweeted this out, I ended up buying it. It's called Affinity Photo. It's sort of, I've been using Photoshop Elements for a long time, and it is, for whatever reason on my machine, it is a huge POS when it comes to performance. Like, it just...
Photoshop Elements is really? Okay.
Yeah, it struggles, and I have no idea why. So it's called Affinity Photo, and it's 50% off. It's like $20 or something right now.
Yeah.
And I just bought it and downloaded it. It looks like at least for my use cases, it's a very good replacement for it. So if anybody's out there looking for it.
I am fascinated that you brought this topic up, because I'm literally testing it myself right now. You can actually download a trial of it. Yep. It's not obvious when you go to their website. I actually Googled Affinity Photo trial and then got the direct link.
So one thing to point out about that trial, you got to be not careful, but that trial lasts 90 days. And the 50% off sale, I think, ends the 20th. Yeah. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Oh, no. My goal was to make a decision within a few days, because I have a very specific workflow. I know all of the I use Photoshop Elements every day to post the images you see on the site. I crop them, I resize them, I output them in a specific format, and I've been doing this for so many years. I know, even going to regular Photoshop is a huge blocker, because all of the keyboard shortcuts are completely different for everything I just described. It's bizarre. I don't know why that's the case. it's different in Affinity Photo, and I could get used to that. So I guess for me, like, here's the math you need to kind of think about. Even full price at $50, Affinity Photo is dramatically less expensive than Photoshop Elements, right? Which is about $100. It's sometimes on sale for $80. A couple of things just to think about. I don't know what the licensing is on Affinity. That's one of the things I meant to look up this morning. In other words, if I buy this thing and I get a code, can I put it on as many computers as I want? You may know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because in Photoshop Elements, if you buy it from Adobe directly, you can only put it on 2 computers. And you have to really manage those things, because if you screw it up, you may lose an install capability or whatever. What does this mean for upgrades and so forth? As Affinity Photo is improved, do you get upgrades forever? Is it one version? I don't know either. So those are things I need to look at. It does seem like a lightweight, full-featured program. I like the performance and everything. But here's the one little interesting asterisk for me. I purchased Adobe Photoshop Elements from the store, the Microsoft store. That means I basically have infinite installs of this thing. And for someone like me who moves between so many different computers, that's actually kind of a huge deal. And it does do what I want. So I guess the question is, even at $25, it's just $25. Like, I get that. But I need to, that's why I want to look at the licensing stuff. But $25 is still $25 more than I'm spending right now to use Photoshop Elements. You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to think through it, because right now I basically have infinite use of Adobe Photoshop Elements, thanks to the Microsoft Store. So it's one of the things they really got right. And if you I don't know how you purchased it, Brad, but I mean, and of course you're having performance problems too. So I agree with you. It looks great. Like, I've used like Paint.net or the GIMP, or there's a lot of things like this, and it's like they're always like this one looks like it looks it could,
especially if you're have not used Photoshop in the past and you don't kind of have that ingrained workflow, it's a great alternative.
It's going to be my app pick today on Windows Weekly. It's funny. It's weird to me that you mentioned this, because I've been experimenting. So as I post articles this morning, I'm going to be using that, and just to kind of try to work through the workflow, because I've been some of the steps, there aren't keyboard shortcuts, and it's like it kind of I know it's a little thing, but
if you're used to it,
well, you can get used to new things. I mean, I'm absolutely okay, but like, one of the reasons I don't like using Adobe Photoshop on the Mac, which, by the way, I've also bought it over there for the very occasional times I ever use it there, is there are no keyboard shortcuts. So all of the steps, I just, you drag it in, you resize, I resize, I crop, I export. At least 2 or 3 of those steps can be done completely with the keyboard on the Windows.
Yeah.
None of them can be done with the keyboard on the Mac. And that is like, it's like you're running through a field, and then all of a sudden you're running through mud, and it's a real blocker. So
there's got to be keyboard shortcuts on the Mac.
Nope.
You sure it's not the command key, not control?
No, so what's missing is on Windows, you always have basically always have a complete, I guess it's a Z order, a tab order, where you can hit the tab key and select every single control that exists in any window. That does not exist on the Mac. They support some controls have that, not all. And then there's the alt letter type things, like, for example, in actually, it's easier if I just switch. It's like, see, I just do it without thinking about it. It's funny. I don't have a file in there. That's why it's not working. No, it's not that big of a deal. But the point is, like, when I want to export a file for the web, it's Alt FW. Okay. It's hard for me to think. I do it without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
When I crop, Alt IP. I just.
You just know.
It's just muscle memory. I just, and on the Mac, none of what I just said is possible. None of it. And it's like, you can't alt anything to bring up the menu. Like,
it's got to be the command key. You should try it with the command or the Apple.
I'm not sure. I'm not using the Mac, but the point is, it's just been
use it on a Chromebook.
Whatever. Everyone can correct me. It's fine. I don't care. I'm just saying, it's hard. I know for a fact that tab order thing that's not a thing. They only support some controls, and it might even be on an app by app basis. So you just don't have the ability to tab onto any control you want and hit a space or an enter or whatever to make it happen. It does not exist on the Mac. That one on the Mac, that one I am 100% positive.
So what are the odds that on the 22nd, Monday, when Apple talks about switching to their own A series chips, that Adobe walks out on stage and says, "Hey, we're going to support this."
Oh, it'd be awesome if they walked out and said, "We're not."
Yeah, they're like, screw these guys. Adobe is on the stage of every conference anymore.
I mean, if there's, again, there's such a range of things they could announce, from literally nothing to we're going whole hog. It's going to be the whole thing. And it's probably going to be somewhere in between. So, yes, I mean, if this is seriously happening and it's not just one device that's low end and we're not doing backward compatibility and blah, 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 at that point, you don't need Adobe because who cares? But, yeah, if they're serious about it, I mean, that would send a message that any Apple fan would completely recognize, because that was a huge sticking point when OS X came out.
Yep. So, all right, there we go. We'll catch everybody right back here tomorrow.